Genesis 12:7 today. Genesis 12:7. And Jehovah was seen by Abraham and said, "To your seed I will give this land." And there he built an altar to Jehovah, who had been seen by him. And there he built an altar to Jehovah, who had been seen by him. Jehovah was seen by Abram means that Jehovah appeared to the Lord while he was still young, and said, "To your seed I will give this land," means that those who believed in him would receive heavenly gifts. And there he built an altar to Jehovah, who had been seen by him, symbolizes the time when he first worshipped his father with a heavenly kind of love. The meaning of Jehovah was seen by Abram is the fact that Jehovah appeared to the Lord while he was still young is established by the foregoing. The meaning of Jehovah was seen by Abram as the fact that Jehovah appeared to the Lord while he was still young is established by the foregoing remarks and simply by Abram's representation of the Lord. It can also be seen from the course of progress. He acquired heavenly traits and then perception, from which it follows that Jehovah appeared to him. The fact that he said, "To your seed I will give this land," means that those who believed in him would receive heavenly gifts can be seen from the symbolism of seed and from the symbolism of land. Seed symbolizes belief in the Lord as shown earlier. Land symbolizes heavenly attributes as also shown above at verse 1 of this chapter and in sections as well. On the literal plane, Abram's seed means his descendants by Jacob's line, while while the land means the actual land of Canaan. This land was to be given to them as a possession to enable them to represent heavenly and spiritual facets of the Lord's kingdom and church. It was also given to them to enable a representative church to be established among them. And because the Lord was to be born there on an inner level, however, seed symbolizes nothing but belief in the Lord, while land symbolizes nothing but heavenly qualities. Here the meaning is that those who believed in him would receive heavenly gifts. It has been said many times before that believing in the Lord means the symbolism of, and there he built an altar to Jehovah who had been seen by him, as the time when he first worshipped his father with a heavenly kind of love can be seen from the symbolism of an altar as the main representative object used in worship. Genesis 12:8, and he moved from there onto a mountain to the east of Bethel and spread his tent. Bethel was toward the sea and Ai toward the east. And there he built an altar to Jehovah and called on Jehovah's name. He moved from there onto a mountain to the east of Bethel, symbolizes the Lord's fourth state as a youth which would involve development in the heavenly aspects of love. There are what the move onto a mountain to the east of Bethel is, and spread his tent symbolizes the holy attributes of faith. And Bethel was toward the sea, and A toward the east means that his state would still be confused. And he built an altar to Jehovah, symbolizes his outward worship of his father in that state, and called on Jehovah's name symbolizes his inward worship of his father in that state. The fact that he moved from there onto a mountain to the east of Bethel symbolizes the Lord's fourth state as a youth can be seen from what comes above and below, and so from the course of progress being described as well. Following that course, the Lord absorbed the heavenly aspects of love, first of all, starting in infancy. The heavenly aspects of love for Jehovah, love for one's neighbor, and the innocence that marks both. Absolutely everything else flows from those attributes which function as the actual fountains of life. Fountains.
Fountains.
Fountains of life, since nothing else more than a branch of that stream. These heavenly traits are infused, infused in us. Mhm.
Infused.
Infused. These heavenly traits are infused in us principally,
Principally.
principally, infused in us principally at the stage of childhood, from infancy up to adolescence. 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 They are not infused alone with any knowledge because they filter in from the Lord and affect us before we have any idea what love is or what an emotion is, as can be seen from the state of babies and then of children. In us, such traits are called the remnant, and the Lord instills it in us and stores it away for use at later stages of our life. This remnant has been discussed several times before. For more on it, see sections. Since the Lord was born like any other person, he was also led into heavenly capacities in orderly stages from childhood to adolescence and later into knowledge. The nature of the knowledge that he had is depicted in the current verse and is represented below by Abraham's stay in Egypt. The fact that moving onto a mountain to the east of Bethel symbolizes development in the heavenly aspects of love is established by the following. A mountain symbolizes what is heavenly as shown in the east symbolizes Jehovah himself, who is the true east, and specifically his love is also shown in section 101. And Bethel symbolizes knowledge of heavenly qualities. Heavenly attributes are instilled in a person both without any accompanying knowledge and with it, the former from infancy to adolescence, as noted just above, but the latter from adolescence to a time of full maturity, full maturity.
Maturity.
Maturity. Mhm. Manhood.
Maturity.
Maturity. Because the Lord was to advance, or advance,
Advance.
advance. Mhm. Because the Lord was to advance into the knowledge of heavenly matters, knowledge symbolized by Bethel. The present verse says he moved from there onto a mountain to the east of Bethel. The symbolism of and spread his tent as the holy attributes of faith can be seen from the symbolism of a tent as the holy quality of love, and consequently the holy quality of the faith that comes of love. As shown before, in Abraham's spreading of the tent, there means that faith now took its start. Bethel was toward the sea, and A toward the east means that his state would still be confused, specifically in respect to the knowledge of heavenly and spiritual affairs. It is one thing to acquire heavenly qualities and another to acquire knowledge of them. Children and young people are more immersed in heavenly matters than adults are, because they have love for their parents, love shared with peers, and innocence. Peers,
Peers.
peers, peers, Mhm. peers, peers, colleague, like comrades, maybe, yeah. Love shared with peers and innocence. Adults, on the other hand, are more caught up in knowledge about these things than children and young people are, even though most of them do not display heavenly kinds of love until we learn about the properties of love and faith. We live in dim conditions so far as knowledge goes. Such conditions are portrayed here by the fact that Bethel was toward the sea, the west, and they toward the east. Bethel, as noted, symbolizes the knowledge of heavenly matters, A, though, symbolizes the knowledge of worldly matter. When the former knowledge is dim, it is said to be on the west, because in the word, the west symbolizes obscurity. Obscurity.
Obscurity.
Obscurity like darkness. Mhm. Disguise. Obscurity. When the latter knowledge is clear, it is said to be on the east, because the east is brighter than the west. There is no need to prove the symbolism of west and east, since anyone can see it without proof. The symbolism of Bethel as the knowledge of heavenly things can be seen from other passages in the word that mention Bethel. In the next chapter, Genesis 13, for example, Abram went on his journeys from the south all the way to Bethel, all the way to the place where his tent had been at the start between Bethel and Dan, to the place of the altar that he had made there. On his journeys from the south to Bethel, in this passage symbolizes an advance into the light of knowledge, which is why it does not say here that Bethel was on the west and A on the east, as regards Jacob when he saw the ladder. He said ladder. Jacob's ladder.
Ladder.
Ladder. Jacob's ladder. When he saw the ladder, he said, "This is nothing but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." And he called the name of this place Bethel. Here too, Bethel symbolizes a knowledge of heavenly things. We ourselves are Bethel, which means God's house and the gate of heaven, which we achieve the heavenly qualities we have learned about. While we are being reborn, the knowledge of spiritual and heavenly qualities initiates us into the process. But when our rebirth is complete, our initiation is complete, and the spiritual and heavenly attributes we have learned about becomes ours. Later on, God said to Jacob, "Rise, go up to Bethel and live there. Make there an altar to God who appeared to you." Here again, Bethel symbolizes knowledge. The Ark of Jehovah was in Bethel, and the children of Israel would go there and ask Jehovah questions, which which has a similar symbolism. So does the fact that the king of Assyria sent to Samaria one of the priests he had carried off from Samaria. Samaria.
Samaria.
Samaria. And that this priest settled in Bethel and was teaching them how to fear Jehovah. Amos. In Amos. Amaziah said to Amos, "Seer, seer,
Seer.
seer," said to Amos, "Seer, go flee into the land of Judah and eat bread there, and there you are to prophesy. And at Bethel you must not continue to prophesy anymore, because it is a royal sanctuary, and it is a house for the kingdom." After Jeroboam desecrated Bethel, it took on the opposite representation. Examples may be seen in Hosea, Amos. The symbolism of A, as the knowledge of worldly things, can also be proved by narrative and prophetic passages in the word in Joshua, Jeremiah. The symbolism of and he built an altar to Jehovah as his outward worship of his father. In that state can be seen from the symbolism of an altar as the main representative object used in worship. The symbolism of and called on Jehovah's name as his inward worship of his father in that state can be seen from the symbolism of calling on Jehovah's name. Anyone can see that building an altar to Jehovah is outward worship, while calling on Jehovah's name is inward. Genesis 12:9. And Abram traveled, going and traveling toward the south. Abram traveled, going and traveling symbolizes further advancement. Toward the south means into goodness and truth, and so into a condition in which inner things would be clear. The symbolism of and Abram traveled, going and traveling as further advancement can be seen from the symbolism of going and traveling. Among the ancients, journeys, travels, and immigration had no other meaning, so in the word as well, they have no other symbolism on an inner level. This is where the Lord's advances to pronounce
Advances.
Advances. Advances. There is where the words advances. Advance like promotion.
Hello.
Progress. The Lord's advances into knowledge begin. Like any other person, the Lord also learned by instructions. Luke demonstrates this. The child grew and became strong in spirit. He was in the wastelands up to the day of his presentation to Israel. In the same author, the child grew and became strong in spirit and was filled with wisdom, and God's favor on him. In the same author, sorry. Hello.
Hello.
What are you reading? Sorry, can you tell us?
It's a book of Emmanuel Swedenborg, Secrets of Heaven. You can see this book on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And if you want to read, you can read next verse.
Привет, как дела? Хорошо, ты как?
Sorry, what? I don't. What you say? Actually, speak English, please. It's English-speaking channel.
Kanka, I thought you are Russian, so just I tried to speak
Okay.
Russian.
I
have
can
an
read.
idea about Russian.
I can read 2 pages of this.
Okay, we are ready. We are focused on you. If you start the reading,
Okay,
we will listen.
I'll start.
Okay.
Okay, so Joseph and
Bro, I can't be freaking.
Sorry, activated for some reason. Joseph and Jesus' mother, after 3 days, found him in the temple, sitting in the middle of the teachers and listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone listening to him was astounded at his understanding and his answers. Seeing
what is astounding?
Astounded. I think it's astounded.
Astounded.
Yeah, right. It's astounded.
Like amazed, shocked.
Mm-hmm.
Astounded.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing him, Joseph and Mary were amazed, but he said to them, "Why did you search for me? Didn't you know that I have to see my father's business?" Verse 42 of the same chapter says that he was then 12 years old in the same author. Okay, you read next. Sorry.
If you can continue, if you can. Okay. After that, Jesus advanced in wisdom and age and in favor with God and humankind. Luke 2:52. The fact that toward the south means into goodness and truth, and so into a condition in which inner thing would be clear, can be seen from the symbolism of the south on noonday light. The symbolism of the south as a stage of clarity comes from this. In the other life, there are no compass directions. No compass directions.
Compass.
Compass. Compass direction. There are no compass direction. Just as There are no times and seasons, but only the conditions symbolized by directions and time periods. The state of our ability to understand things resembles conditions at different times of day and seasons of the year, and also in different quarters of the globe. A day goes through the stages of evening, night, morning, and midday. A year goes through those of fall, winter, spring, and summer. And the conditions in the four quarters are those of the sun in the west, north, east, and south. Similar to these conditions are the states of our ability to understand. In heaven, amazing to say, the people on whom the light shines are those who enjoy a condition of wisdom and understanding, and it shines in perfect accord with that condition. Those who enjoy the highest state of wisdom and understanding have the greatest light. Wisdom there, however, is a matter of love and charity, while understanding there is a matter of faith in the Lord. Faith in the Lord. The other world has a kind of light to which the light of the world can hardly be compared, as the wealth of experience has shown me. I will have more to say about these experiences below with the Lord's divine mercy, and because such a correspondence exists in heaven between light and matters of understanding, here and elsewhere in the world, that is truly what the South means. The South here symbolizes understanding, which is acquired by means of religious knowledge. Religious concepts are heavenly and spiritual truth, which are just so many rays of light in heaven, and which the light also makes visible, as noted, because the Lord was now to soak up knowledge, soak,
Soap.
absorb like this. Now to soak up knowledge so that he could become the actual light of heaven, even in respect to his human nature. Respect to his human nature, the present verse says that he traveled, going and traveling toward the south. The fact that the south symbolizes these things can be seen from similar passages in the word, as in Isaiah. I will say, to the north, hand them over, and to the south, do not hinder them. Hinder.
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 Hinder. What is this? It's like hinder.
Pronunciation though. Like in America we say hinder or hinder.
Hinder. Hinder. It's like don't restrain, yeah?
Oh,
Do not
Russian. А ты
hinder.
говоришь по-русски. Привет.
Yeah, I know Russian. Hello, but
Давай.
I'm learning English.
Yeah,
Mm,
of course.
mm. Do you know Russian
North
too? Yeah.
stands for people who lack knowledge. The South for people who possess. Shit, I messed up. I'm out of here.
Okay, do not hinder them. Bring my sons from far away and my daughters from the end of the earth. Do not hinder them. The North stands for people who lack knowledge, the South for people who possess it. Sons stand for truth and daughters for goodness in the same author. If you bring out your soul for someone starving and satiate, what is this? Satiate and afflicted soul. Satiate.
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 Satiate. It's like satisfy. Quench. Satiate. Satiate. And for someone starving and satiate, satiate in satiate an afflicted soul. In the shadows, your light will rise, and your darkness will be like midday. Bringing out your soul for someone starving and satiating an afflicted soul stands for good deeds inspired by neighborly love in general. Afflicted.
Afflicted.
It's like suffering. And satiating an afflicted soul stands for good deeds inspired by neighborly love in general. In the shadows, your light will rise stands for the fact that people who do such deeds have an intelligent understanding of truth, while your darkness will be like midday. Stands for the fact that they have a wise appreciation of goodness. Midday or the south symbolizes goodness on account of its warmth and truth on account of its brightness. In Ezekiel, in visions of God, he brought me to the land of Israel and put me on a mountain which was very tall and on which there was something like the structure of a city on the south. This is about a New Jerusalem of the Lord's kingdom, or the Lord's kingdom, which is said to be on the south because it has the light of wisdom and understanding in David. Jehovah will present your virtue as the light and your integrity as the midday. In the same author, you will not be afraid of the horror at night, of the arrow that might fly by day, of contagion. Infection. I knew this word, contagion. Of contagion that will walk in the dark, of destruction that ravages at midday. Ravages.
Ravages.
Ravages like destroy. Ravages. Ruin. Ravages at midday. Not being afraid of the destruction that ravages everything at midday stands for not being afraid of the damnation that befalls people who have knowledge and pervert it. Befalls. It's like happen, suffer, fall. That befalls people who have knowledge and pervert it. In Ezekiel, child of humankind, turn your face toward the south and lose a shower of words to the south and prophesy to the forest of the south field. And you are to say to the forest of the south, all faces from south to north will be burned in the flame. The forest of the south stands for people who have the light of truth but put it out. So it stands for people like this in the church. In Daniel, from one of the ram's horns, one small horn went out and grew quite big toward the south and toward the sunrise and toward the ornament of Israel and ornament.
Ornament.
Ornament. Ornament toward the ornament of Israel, and it grew right to the army of the heavens. This stands for individuals who attack what is good and true in Jeremiah. Give glory to Jehovah your God before he brings darkness and before your feet stumble on the dusky mountains. Dusky mountains.
dusky,
Dusky, like dim, dark. And you will wait for light, and he will turn it into the shadow of death. He will turn it into blackness. The cities of the south will be closed, and there will be no one to open. The cities of the south stand for knowledge of truth and goodness in Obadiah. Obadiah. The deportees of Jerusalem. Deportees, yeah, like exile. The deportees of Jerusalem who are in Shepherd, Sepharad, in Sepharad. No, it's not Shepherd. Sepharad.
Sepharad,
Who are in Sepharad will inherit the cities of the south. The cities of the south again stand for truth and goodness, and so for the truth and goodness they actually inherit. The topic here is the Lord's kingdom. As I said, Abram traveled, going and traveling toward the south, symbolizes the Lord's advance, advance, promotion, advance. The Lord's advance into goodness and truth, and so into a condition in which inner things were clear. The case with this is that knowledge is what opens up a line of sight to heavenly and spiritual entities. Knowledge opens a path leading from the inner self to the outer, which contains receiving vessels. As many receiving vessels are concepts concerning goodness and truth. Heavenly things flow into these concepts as their proper vessels. Maybe someone wants to read next verse, Genesis 12:10.
Maybe later. Hello.
Hello. Go ahead. Can you read?
Oh, no. Maybe later.
Genesis 12:10. And there was famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to reside as an immigrant there, because the famine was heavy in the land. There was famine in the land symbolizes the scarcity, like scare, but what is scarcity?
scarcity,
Scarcity, like small number, luck, maybe luck. The scarcity of knowledge, like lack of knowledge. The scarcity of knowledge that still affected the Lord when he was young. And Abram went down into Egypt to reside as an immigrant, means being taught concepts from the Word. Egypt is the knowledge of those concepts, while residing as an immigrant is being taught. Because the famine was heavy in the land, symbolizes a severe shortage in his outer self. Severe.
severe,
Like serious, heavy, strong. Shortage. What is this?
shortage,
Shortage, like lack. And hunger.
hunger,
Hunger. A severe shortage in his outer self. In the sense, like maybe deficiency, maybe
Deficiency.
deficiency. Mhm. The symbolism of there was famine in the land as the scarcity of knowledge that still affected the Lord when he was young can be seen from remarks above. In our youth, the knowledge we have never comes from inside, but from the objects of the senses, especially from what we hear. As noted, our outer self contains receiving vessels which are called the vessels of memory. Knowledge forms these vessels, as anyone can see, under the influence and with the help of the inner self. So knowledge is learned and planted in the memory of the extent that the inner self exerts and an influence. This was true for the Lord too when he was young, because he was born like the rest of us and was taught like the rest of us. Inner self exerts.
Exerts.
Mhm. It's like manifest. Mhm. His inner capacities, however, were heavenly ones, which adapted the vessels so that they could receive knowledge, and so that the various points of knowledge could then become vessels for receiving divinity. His inner aspects were divine ones from Jehovah, his father. His outer aspects were human ones from Mary, his mother. This demonstrates that in the Lord, just as in other people, the outer self suffered a shortage of knowledge in his youth. The symbolism of a famine is a scarcity of knowledge can be seen in other passages of the word. In Isaiah, for example. Shortage is like luck, yeah. Luck. Yeah, luck. The work of Jehovah they do not examine, and the product of his hands they do not see. Therefore my people will go into exile because they lack knowledge, and their nobility will be victims of famine, and their multitude will be parched with thirst. Parched.
Parched.
Parched. Like dry. Will be drained with thirst. Victims of famine stand for dearth. This
Dearth.
death,
Dearth.
death, 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 dearth. It's like lack, shortage, hunger.
Dearth.
It's interesting, maybe in dictionary, in American pronunciation.
Dearth.
Dearth. It's maybe it's better. Dearth, dearth, dearth. For a dearth of heavenly knowledge, a multitude parched with thirst stands for a dearth, 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 dearth of spiritual knowledge. In Jeremiah, parched, dry, parched, multitude parched with thirst stands for a dearth or of spiritual knowledge. In Jeremiah, they lied against Jehovah and said, He does not exist, and evil will not come on us, and sword and famine we will not see, and the prophets will become wind, and no word will come to them. Sword and famine stand for being deprived of the knowledge of truth and goodness. The prophet stand for people who teach but do not have the word in them. Passages throughout the word shows that being devoured by sword and famine is being deprived of the knowledge of truth and goodness. They also show that sword and famine are purgative. Purgative. What is this?
Purgative.
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 Purgative. Purgative. Sword and famine are purgative. A sword is that which purges our spiritual elements.
Purges.
Purges. Purges. Purgative. Purgative and purges. But this word is purgative. Purgative. I don't understand because
Purgative.
purgative. Purgative. And this is purges. Purgative and purges. Our spiritual elements, while famine is that which purges our heavenly elements. Examples are Jeremiah, Lamentations, and so on. Ezekiel contains another example. And tomorrow famine I will bring on you, and I will break the staff of bread for you, and I will send famine on you, and the evil wild animal, and they will berave you. What is this?
Bereave.
Bereave. Bereave.
Bereave.
It's like take away, deprive. Bereave.
Bereave.
And they will bereave you. Bereave. And they bereave. 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 And they bereave you, and the sword I will bring on you. Famine stands for being bereaved. Bereft. Bereaved. Bereft, maybe. Bereave.
Bereft.
Yeah, bereft. Bereft, like deprived. Famine stands for being bereft of heavenly knowledge or of the knowledge of what is good. The result is falsity and evil in David, and Jehovah called down a famine on the land. The whole staff of bread he broke. Breaking the staff of bread stands for being deprived of heavenly nourishment. For good spirits and angels, no other bread sustains life than the knowledge of what is good and true, and goodness and truth itself. This fact leads to the inner level symbolism of famine and bread in the same author. He was satisfied the longing soul, and the starving soul he has filled with good food. The starving soul stands for people who desire knowledge. In Jeremiah, lift the palms of your hands over the soul of your children who faint with hunger, and the head of all your streets. Faint. Hunger stands for a lack of knowledge, and streets for truth in Ezekiel. They will live securely, and no one to terrify them. And I will raise this sapling up.
Sapling.
Sapling, like young growth, young tree. A sapling up for them for a name, and they will no longer be devoured by the famine in the land. This stands for the fact that they will no longer be deprived of the knowledge of goodness and truth. In John, they will no longer starve and no longer thirst. This is speaking of the Lord's kingdom, whose inhabitants enjoy a wealth of all heavenly knowledge and benefits, no starving, and the wealth of spiritual knowledge and truth, no thirst. The Lord likewise said in John, I am the bread of life. No one who comes to me will starve, and no one who believes in me will ever thirst. In Luke 14:8, are those of you who starve now, because you will be satisfied. 14:8.
Fortunate.
Fortunate. It's like happy. Fortunate are those of you who starve now, because you will be satisfied. In the same author, the starving he has filled with good food. The passage speaks of heavenly food, of heavenly good, and the knowledge of that good. The symbolism of famine as the scarcity of knowledge is mentioned openly in Amos. Watch, the days are coming, and I will send a famine into the land, and not starvation for bread, and not thirst for water, but for hearing Jehovah's words. The fact that Abram went down into Egypt to reside as an immigrant, being taught concepts from the word, can be seen from the symbolism of Egypt and of residing as an immigrant. The symbolism of Egypt as the knowledge of those concepts, and the symbolism of residing as an immigrant as being taught, comes directly below. The passages in Luke quoted at the last verse 9 make it clear what while he was young, the Lord was taught like any other person. So do the remarks directly above concerning the outer self, which cannot be reduced into correspondence and agreement with the inner self except through knowledge. One's outer self is body-centered and sense-oriented, and cannot absorb anything heavenly or spiritual unless, like soil, it has seeds of knowledge planted in it. In those seeds of knowledge, heavenly influences can find their receiving vessels. The knowledge, however, has to be from the Word. Knowledge from the Word is such that it offers access to the Lord Himself. The Word itself, after all, comes from the Lord by way of heaven, and in each and every detail contains life from the Lord, despite appearances to the contrary in its outward aspect. From this you can see that when he was young, the Lord did not want to be indoctrinated with any other kind of knowledge but knowledge of the Word, which again gave him open access to his Father, Jehovah himself, with whom he was to unite and become one. He had all the more reason for this reluctance.
Reluctance.
Unwillingness.
Unwillingness.
Reluctance in the fact that the word says nothing that does not have to do with him and its deepest levels, and that did not first come from him. His human nature was only an addition to his divine nature, which has existed from eternity. Egypt in relation to the Lord is the knowledge of those concepts, but in relation to all other people, it is factual knowledge in general. This is established by the symbolism of Egypt in the word dealt with several times before, particularly in sections The ancient church existed in Egypt among many other places, and during the time of church lasted there, the arts and sciences flourished. Arts and sciences.
Sciences.
Sciences flourished. Egypt consequently symbolized scholarly learning. Eventually, though, its people wanted to use their expertise to pry. What is pry?
Pry.
Like curious. To pry into religious mysteries. They wanted to rely on their own powers in examining whether various divine secrets were true. When that happened, magic came into being, and Egypt then symbolized scholarship that twists the truth, which gives rise to falsity, which in turn gives rise to evil. The symbolism can be seen in Isaiah 19:11. Egypt symbolizes useful kinds of knowledge. So in the present verse, it symbolizes the knowledge of concepts can be served as vessels for what is heavenly and spiritual. The following places in the word bear this out. In Isaiah, they led Egypt, the cornerstone of the tribes, astray. Egypt is being called the cornerstone of the tribes, which was to serve as a support for the tenets of faith symbolized by the tribes. In the same author, on the day there will be 5 cities in the land of Egypt, speaking the tongue of Canaan and swearing to Jehovah Sabaoth. Each will be called the Ir-Heres.
Heres.
Ir-Heres. It's like in this place. Ir-Heres. On that day there will be an altar to Jehovah in the middle of the land of Egypt, and a pillar of Jehovah along its border, and it will serve as a sign and as a witness to Jehovah Sabaoth in the land of Egypt. For they will cry out to Jehovah because of their oppressors, yeah. And he will send them a deliverer and a chieftain who will rescue them. And Jehovah will become known to Egypt, and the Egyptians will recognize Jehovah on that day, and they will offer sacrifice and mincha.
Minha.
Mincha. What is this? Mincha. Mincha. It's a Hebrew name, I think. Mincha. Mincha. Okay, I don't know what is mincha.
Some carry on, girl.
But mincha, translation from Portuguese, translation from mincha. Collins, Portuguese English dictionary, but I don't know mincha. Like temple, maybe. Temple. Okay. Mincha swear an oath to Jehovah and fulfill it. And Jehovah will strike Egypt, strike and heal. And they will return to Jehovah, and he will be prevailed on by their prayers and heal them. These traits of Egypt, in a good sense, as standing for people who possess facts of earthly truth that act as containers for spiritual truth in the same author. On that day, there will be a path from Egypt to Assyria, and Assyria will come into Egypt, and Egypt into Assyria, and the Egyptians will serve Assyria. On the day Israel will be third to Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the middle of the earth, whom Jehovah Sabaoth will bless, saying, a blessing on my people, Egypt, and on the work of my hands, Assyria, and on my inheritance, Israel. In this passage, Egypt symbolizes a knowledge of earthly truth. Assyria symbolizes the power of reason or rational ideas, and Israel symbolizes spiritual matters. These follow and after the other, which is why it says that on the day there will be a path out of Egypt into Assyria, and that Israel will be third to Egypt and Assyria. In Ezekiel, fine linen with embroidery from Egypt was what you spread out to serve you as a banner. This is about Tyre, which symbolizes the possession of religious knowledge. Fine linen with embroidery stands for truth in the secular disciplines that perform a service. Secular facts, since they belong to the outer self, ought to serve the inner self in the same author. This is what the Lord Jehovah has said at the end of 40 years. I will gather Egypt from the peoples where they have been scattered, and I will bring Egypt back from captivity. These words, that they would be gathered from the peoples and brought back from captivity, stand for something similar, and they are said of Judah and Israel in a number of places in Zechariah. And it will happen that whoever does not go up from the clans of the earth to Jerusalem to worship the King, Jehovah Sabaoth, on them, there will be no rain. And if the clan of Egypt does not go up and does not come, this too speaks in a good sense of Egypt, which means something similar. Egypt's symbolism as learning or human wisdom is visible in Daniel 2, where the knowledge of heavenly and spiritual subjects is called the hidden treasures of gold and silver, and also the desirable things of Egypt. And of Solomon it is said that his wisdom multiplied beyond the wisdom of all the children of the East, and beyond all the wisdom of the Egyptians. The house that Solomon built for the daughter of Pharaoh had the same representation. 1 Kings 7, 8 and following verses. The fact that the Lord was taken to Egypt as a child also has no other symbolism than the journey of Abram does here. In addition, it allowed the Lord to fulfill all that had been represented concerning him. The relocation to Egypt of Jacob and his offspring also represented nothing else in the deepest sense than the Lord's earliest instruction in knowledge from the Word, as is evident in the following passages. This is what we find in Matthew concerning the Lord. An angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph, saying, when you have woken, take the boy and his mother and escape into Egypt, and be there until I say. Waking up. Wake and walking. It's the third form, yeah, of wake.
Woken.
Yeah, woken. Like wake up. Woken. Waking up, he took the boy and his mother by night and retreated into Egypt, and was there until Herod's death. Herod, yeah. Herod's, until Herod's death, so that there would be a fulfillment of the saying by the prophet when he said, "Out of Egypt I called my child." Hosea speaks of the same event this way: when Israel was a boy, I doted on him, and out of Egypt I called my child. What is doted? Doted on.
Doted on.
Doted on. Doted. It's like adore, rejoice.
Doted.
Doted on him, and out of Egypt I called my child. This shows that Israel as a boy means the Lord, and that the words of out of Egypt I called my child mean instruction of him when he was young. In the same author, through a prophet Jehovah brought Israel up out of Egypt, and through a prophet Israel was kept safe. Here too, Israel means the Lord. A prophet symbolizes a teacher, and accordingly the teaching of religious concepts. In David, God Sabaoth, bring us back and make your face shine, and we will be saved. You have caused a grapevine to travel from Egypt. You have driven away the nations and planted it. This too is about the Lord who is being called a grapevine from Egypt because of the religious concepts he was learning. The fact that residing as an immigrant means being taught can be seen from the symbolism of immigrating in the word as being taught. This symbolism comes about because in heaven, residing in a foreign land and immigrating, it's immigrating, not immigration. Yeah, immigrating.
Immigrating.
Yeah, immigrating. And immigrating, in other words, moving from the place to another, is simply a change in condition. As shown earlier, so every time the word speaks of traveling, immigrating, or moving from place to place, the one thing that comes to an angel's mind is the kind of change in condition that angels experience. Changes of state can be either changes in one's way of thinking or changes in one's feelings. Changes in the state of one's thinking are new concepts in the world of spirits. These changes result from instruction, and since the people of the earliest church were in contact with heaven and its angels, a consequence was that traveling meant exactly that to them. So here, the fact that Abram went down into Egypt to reside as an immigrant does indeed symbolize instruction of the Lord. The journey of Jacob and his offspring into Egypt means much the same. In Isaiah, for instance, this is what the Lord Jehovah has said: "My people went down to Egypt in the beginning to stay as immigrants, and Assyria for no reason oppressed them." Assyria here stands for species logic. In the Jewish church for species.
Specious.
Species logic. Species like hypocritical. Stands for species logic. In the Jewish church, for the same reason, people who were being taught were called immigrants residing in their midst, and by command they were to be treated the same as the native born. Ezekiel speaks of them this way: you shall divide this land for yourselves according to the tribes of Israel, and it will happen that you shall divide it by lot as an inheritance for yourselves and for the immigrants residing on your midst, and they shall be to you as the native born among the children of Israel. Along with you, they shall cast a lot for an inheritance in the middle of the tribes of Israel. And it will happen that in the tribe that an immigrant is residing with, there you shall give the immigrant and an inheritance. This is about a New Jerusalem or the Lord's kingdom. The immigrants residing in the land mean people who allow themselves to be instructed, and consequently they mean religious outsiders. Outsiders.
Outsiders.
hmm Like uh, external actors. Outsiders. Like alien. Religious outsiders. Evidence that immigrants stand for people who are being taught may be seen in the statement that whatever tribe an immigrant was living with, that was there the immigrant was to receive an inheritance. Tribes stand for tenets of the true faith. Immigrating also has the same symbolism as traveling and settling. Traveling symbolizes the customs and pattern of. Okay. Traveling symbolizes the customs and pattern of a life, while settling somewhere symbolizes living one's life as mentioned earlier in. So the land of Canaan is also referred to as the land of Abraham's, Isaac's, and Jacob's travels. In Genesis, Exodus, and Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The days of the years of my travels, few and evil, have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not overtaken the days of the years of the life of my forebears in the days of their travels." Travels here stand for the way we live and what we are taught. The symbolism of because the famine was heavy in the land as a severe shortage in his outer self can be seen from the symbolism of famine above in this verse. This verse holds too many secrets to list briefly. The Lord's capacity to learn outstripped any other individuals, but since unlike other people, he needed to be taught heavenly knowledge before spiritual, the message applies to him. Another reason it applies is that his external self contained evil he inherited from his mother, which he would have to fight and overcome, not to mention countless other secrets. Who wants to read next section, next verse, or and maybe any comments about previous verse?
I can read, I guess.
Go ahead.
Genesis 12:11. And it happened when he came near entering Egypt that he said to Sarai, his wife, "Consider, please, I know that you are a woman beautiful to see." And it happened when he came near entering Egypt means when he started to learn. Egypt, as noted, means the knowledge of religious concepts. That he said to Sarah, his wife, means that these were his thoughts about the truth to which heavenly qualities are attached. Sarah, his wife, is truth connected to the heavenly capacities the Lord had inside him. Consider, Please, I know that you are a woman beautiful to see, means that truth from a heavenly source is appealing. The fact that and it happened when he came near entering Egypt means when he started to learn can be seen from the symbolism of Egypt as the knowledge of religious concepts. When someone is said to approach this, it cannot mean anything else. The fact that Egypt is the knowledge of religious concepts can be seen from the remarks and illustration concerning Egypt as the last verse. That he said to Sarai his wife means that these were his thought about the truth to which heavenly qualities are attached, as can be seen from the symbolism of Sarai. She is called a wife. What a wife actually means in the word's inner sense is truth united with goodness, because the bond between truth and goodness is no different than a marriage. When the word speaks of a husband by name, he symbolizes what is good and his wife symbolizes truth. When it doesn't name the husband but calls him a man, however, he symbolizes truth and his wife symbolizes what is good. The word is consistent in this respect. As we noted earlier, at blah 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 blah, because Abram is mentioned by name in this chapter, Sarah, his wife, symbolizes truth. So saying something to Sarah, his wife, in an inner sense, is thinking such and such about the truth to which heavenly qualities are united. It is historically true that Abram spoke this way to his wife when he set out for Egypt, but as mentioned already, all the historical events of the word are representative, while all the words are symbolic. What was recorded was confined to the events, sequence, and wording that would express those secrets in an inner sense. The fact that Sarah, his wife, is truth connected to the heavenly capacities the Lord had inside him.
You said confined, maybe confined, yeah?
I'm not sure too.
Confined.
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 Confined. It's like restricted, concluded, closed, limited, narrow, shut, like in prison. In the sense, what was recorded was confined to the events. Confined in this, maybe in the sense like,
Hello, guys. I just
maybe,
joined, so may I
Restrict.
ask what
yeah.
this reading is about?
It's this reading is about spiritual meaning of the book of Genesis of the Bible, and
Oh,
actually it's about mind, like
okay.
state of mind.
All right, thanks.
It's not about past. It's about now. What is going on right now? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
like this,
Mm-hmm.
confined. Hmm.
It's established by the statements just made concerning Sarai as a wife. The reason I say truth connected to heavenly capacities is that the Lord already had all truth inside him. A heavenly quality carries truth with it. The one is as inseparable from the other as light is from a flame, but it was hidden in his inner self, which was divine. Secular and religious knowledge, which he gained by study, are not truth but only vessels for receiving truth. The things we have in our memory are anything but truth, even if truth is attributed to them. Instead, they function as vessels that hold truth. The Lord had to form or rather open up these vessels by being instructed in concepts from the Word. The goal was not only to infuse heavenly characteristics into those concepts, but also to make the concepts themselves heavenly and therefore divine. The Lord united his divine nature to his human nature so that his human nature would also become divine. The fact that consider, please, I know that you are a woman beautiful to see, means that truth from a heavenly source is appealing can be seen from the symbolism of a woman beautiful to see. All truth that is heavenly or that develops out of something heavenly is blissful for our inner self and appealing to our self. And that is exactly how heavenly angels perceive truth. The situation is wholly different, though truth is not from a heavenly source. There are two kinds of happiness in a person's inner self and two kinds of pleasure corresponding to them in the outer self. One is associated with goodness and the other with truth. Heavenly happiness and pleasure come from goodness. Spiritual happiness and pleasure come from truth. It is common knowledge that truth itself brings happiness and pleasure, but the happiness and pleasure are, how to read this one?
Mm. My version is like quintessential. Quintessential. Let's see.
Quintessential.
Quintessential. Quintessential, like most typical, yeah.
Typical.
Typical. Typical.
Typical.
Like most typical.
Pleasure are
It's like it's not like typical. Typical and most typical. Typical. Okay.
okay. The happiness and pleasure are quintessential when they come from a heavenly origin. Their presence renders the truth itself heavenly as well, and that is called heavenly truth. It bears a resemblance to sunlight in the spring, which enfolds in itself a warmth that makes all the vegetation on earth grow and gives them something almost like animal life. This heavenly kind of truth is beauty itself, and it is what is here called a woman beautiful to see. Any additional secrets wrapped up in this clause will come out in what follows.
Thank you.
Genesis. Okay.
It's the next verse. Thank you. Who? Maybe someone wants to read next verse. Genesis 12:12.
I'll read.
Go ahead.
Genesis 12:12. Sorry. And it will happen when the Egyptians see you that they will say, "This is his wife," and kill me and keep you alive. And it will happen when the Egyptians see you symbolizes the study of religious concepts. What is being depicted is the turn that study takes when the people who engage in it see heavenly concepts. That they will say this is his wife means that they will call such concepts heavenly. And kill me that and keep you alive means that they would not care about heavenly things but only about the knowledge itself, which they want, which they would steal. And it will happen when the Egyptians see you symbolize the study of the religious concepts. What is being depicted is the turn that study takes when the people who engage in it see heavenly concepts. This is evident from the symbolism of Egypt as the study of religious concepts, which has been demonstrated already. From this, you can tell what if the Egyptian sea means that the character of this study is depicted in the present verse. Such a characteristic is inherent in the knowledge of religious concepts and is an earthly element of it. It asserts itself in young people when they are just starting to learn the loftier a subject is, the more they want to know about it. When they hear that a subject has heavenly or divine implications, they are still more eager. But the thrill involved is in an earthly one and rises out of a craving that belongs to the outer self. In people other than the Lord, this craving causes them to find pleasure only in the bare study of religious knowledge without any other goal. The reality is that study of such knowledge is merely a kind of tool designed to fulfill a use. To be specific, the knowledge is intended to serve
What,
as
what is implications? Implications.
Implications.
It's like meaning and involvement, hidden meaning, manifestation, application. In this sense, like divine, maybe manifestations. Yeah. Okay.
to serve as a vessel for heavenly and spiritual entities. When it served this purpose, then it first comes into use, and all the pleasure it provides comes from the use of it. Anyone who pays attention can see that in itself a store of religious knowledge is just a means for becoming rational, then spiritual, and at last heavenly. The knowledge can then bring our outer being into contact with our inner being. When this happens, our study of it has served its true purpose, then the inner self, after all, concerns itself only with that which is useful. For the same reason, the Lord imparts the pleasure that youth and early adulthood discovers in learning things. When we start to put our delight in bare learning, however, it is a bodily desire that carries us away. Insofar as it carries us away, insofar as we find pleasure in mere learning, so far we remove ourselves from heaven, and so far the facts we know shut themselves off from the Lord. To partake of the material world, on the other hand, insofar as we acquire facts for some useful purpose, for the sake of human society and the Lord's church on earth, of the Lord's kingdom in the heavens, or most especially of the Lord Himself, so much more do they open up. Angels possess all religion, religious knowledge, and their knowledge is so broad that hardly one part in 10,000 can be passed on to people on earth in an entirely comprehensible way. Yet knowledge itself counts for nothing with angels compared to the use it can serve. These considerations indicate what is meant by the words, "When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife,' and kill me and keep you alive." The Lord realized all this when he was young and thought these along these lines, which is why I explain the phrase as I do. Knowledge is inherently such that if the Lord had been carried away by the naked desire for learning religious concepts, he would have grown indifferent to any heavenly dimensions and cared only for the knowledge itself. And he would then have been robbed of this knowledge by the craving to acquire it. I will have more to say on this below. Shall I go on?
Yeah, go on, because it's your verse. You can read this verse.
That they will say this is his wife means that they will call such concepts heavenly. This can be seen from the symbolism of a wife as truth connected to heavenly qualities, and so from the symbolism of this is his wife as something heavenly. The fact that "and kill me and keep you alive" means that they would not care about heavenly things but only about the knowledge itself can be seen from the remarks just made. Genesis 12:13. Please say you are my sister, in order that it may go well for me on account of you, and that my soul may live because of you. Please say that you are my sister symbolizes intuitive truth, which is a sister. In order it may go well for me on account of you means that what was what was what was heavenly could not be abused in that case, and that my soul may live because of you, because means that what was heavenly could be preserved in that case. Yeah. The symbol.
Is it the next verse? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If you're not 30, you can continue.
I can read one more. Yeah. Okay. The symbolism of please say you are my sister, as intuitive truth, which is a sister, can be seen from the symbolism of a sister as intuitive truth. When heavenly truth is a wife, more will be said about the symbolism below. The situation is this: secular knowledge by its very nature wants nothing more than to thrust itself into heavenly affairs and explore them. But this goes against a proper procedure, since it means doing violence to heavenly matters. The proper procedure is for a heavenly idea to insert itself by means of a spiritual idea into our rational thinking, and by means of this into some fact that we know, and to fit the fact to its purpose. If this procedure is not followed, no wisdom is at all possible. And this verse again holds secrets about the way the Lord's Father taught him in a completely orderly way. Consequently, it also holds secret about the way his outer self united with his inner. That is, the way his outer self became divine, just like his inner self, so that he became Jehovah in regard to both of his essential qualities. This was accomplished through religious concepts, which are a means. Without these concepts as a means, a person's outer self could not even become human. The fact that in order that it may go well for me on account of you means that what was heavenly could not be abused in that case can be seen from statements above. The proper sequence, as already mentioned several times, is for the heavenly dimensions to flow into the spiritual one, and the spiritual one into the rational one, and the rational one into the dimensions of factual knowledge. When this order is followed, then the heavenly dimensions adapts the spiritual one to its purposes, the spiritual adapts the rational, and the rational adapts the factual. The realm of factual knowledge in general then becomes the outermost vessel, uh, or what is the same, facts individually and in their details become the outermost vessels corresponding to rational ideas. Rational ideas become vessels corresponding to spiritual ideas, and spiritual ideas become vessels corresponding to heavenly ideas. When this pattern is followed, the heavenly dimension cannot be abused, otherwise it is abuse. Since the present verse, in an inner sense deals with the Lord's education, it describes how he advanced. That my soul may live because of you means that what was heavenly could be preserved in that case, as indicated by the symbolism of a soul as something heavenly. The heavenly element is the soul itself, since it is life itself. This shows what that my soul may live because of you symbolizes. What follows will demonstrate that heavenly qualities, or divine ones, were not attached to the Lord so as to unite into a single essence with his human qualities until after he had suffered spiritual trials and by that means rid himself of the evil he had inherited from his mother. How his heavenly core remained unharmed and how it was instead preserved is portrayed in the current and following verses.
Thank you very much. Your region is very
you.
good.
Thank you.
Are you? Is English your first language?
No, I've been
No.
here before. I've read before.
Okay, yeah. It's very good to listen to a reading because you you read well.
Thank you.
Who who wants maybe any comments or maybe and maybe someone wants to read next verse?
I read
Go ahead.
Genesis 12:14. And it happened when Abram came into Egypt that the Egyptians saw the woman, that she was very beautiful. It happened when Abram came into Egypt means when the Lord began to be taught that the Egyptians saw the woman, that she was very beautiful, means that by its very nature. The study of religious knowledge is pleasing for its own sake. The fact that it happened when Abram came into Egypt means when the Lord began to be taught is established by the representation of Abram in an inner sense as the Lord when he was young. It is also established by the symbolism of Egypt as the study of religious knowledge, which was demonstrated above at verse 10 of this chapter. It stands to reason then that coming into Egypt is being taught that the Egyptians saw the woman that she was very beautiful means that the study of religious knowledge is pleasing for its own sake. This can be seen from the remarks above. At verse 11, showing that the study of knowledge is like this in our youth. It is more or less intrinsic.
What is intrinsic?
No idea.
Intrinsic.
Internal.
Inherent, internal, typical, yeah. It's like true. Inner, intrinsic. Okay.
Intrinsic to factual knowledge because it is intrinsic to human beings that at the very start we take pleasure in it for no other purpose that than that of knowing. Each of us is like this. Our spirit finds intense delight in knowing, so intense that there is hardly anything we prefer. Factual knowledge is food for the spirit, which is sustained.
Intense.
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 Intensive.
Intensive.
Intense. Okay. Which is sustained. What is sustained?
Sustained.
Sustained, like maybe supported, aged, persistent, permanent. Maybe in the sense which is sustained, factual knowledge is food for the spirit, which is sustained, like supported, maybe. But I hear echo from someone. Speakerphone, maybe. Yeah. Do you hear echo when you read? No.
Yes, I do hear echo. Yeah.
Someone makes echo. I don't know. Someone makes echo when I speak. I hear myself. Maybe we can see who is that.
Maybe me.
I don't know. If you use maybe it's you. You use speakerphone or headphone?
Maybe. Wait. Still there?
Yeah. It's okay right now. Thank you. Go on.
And refreshed by it, which is our outer self. What?
When it's okay right now. Okay. Go on.
Maybe it's me.
Yeah, it is you, but only when we speak.
Only when I speak?
No, only when me or the guy sharing the screen speak. We can hear ourselves through your mic.
Through my mic.
Yeah.
When I speak, there's a echo on it.
No, when you speak, it's okay.
When I speak or someone else speaks, we hear our echo from you. Maybe because of your settings.
Yeah, I think so.
Because, but I don't understand. If you use headphones, it cannot be.
I'm using a headphone actually.
Okay, I don't know. Okay, but you can read. You can read because when you read, I will mute because it's okay. Okay.
Okay. And refreshed by it just as our outer self is sustained and refreshed by earthly food. This food for our spirit is something that is communicated to our outer self to enable it to adapt to the inner self. The different the different types of this food, though, arrange themselves in a hierarchy. Hierarchy. Heavenly food is every benefit of love and charity received from the Lord. Spiritual food is every true tenet of faith. These two types of food are what an angel lives on. Lives on. From them comes a kind of food that is also heavenly and spiritual, but angelic in a lower degree. And this is the food that an angelic spirit lives on. From this too comes an even more humble type of heavenly and spiritual food, which has to do with reason and therefore with factual knowledge. It is the food that good spirits live on. In the last place comes food for the body, which is our proper food during bodily life. These types of food
These types of food.
correspond to each other in a miraculous way. This too shows why how academic studies can provide their own satisfaction. They resemble appetite and the sense of taste, so the meals we eat on earth correspond to facts in the world of spirits, and appetite and taste themselves correspond to a craving for education. This can be seen from my experiences discussed later. The Lord in the divine mercy willing.
Mhm. Thank you. Who is next? Mhm. Genesis 12:15. And Pharaoh's officers saw her and praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. Pharaoh's officers saw symbolizes the main commandments which are Pharaoh's officers. And praise her to Pharaoh means that this would please him. And the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house means that they would captive his fancy. What is fancy?
Fancy.
Adore.
Fancy.
Fantasy.
Yeah. Fantasy. Fancy. They could capture his fancy, but maybe you can see what is capture his fancy. In this sense, fancy like capture his fancy like maybe it's like favorite, and in this sense, like I think it's like whim,
Whim.
like caprice.
Caprice.
In this sense, fancy. Pharaoh's officers saw symbolizes the main commandments which are Pharaoh's officers, as can be seen from the symbolism of officers and of Pharaoh. In the word, in both the narrative and prophetic parts, officers or chiefs symbolize things that are most important. And Pharaoh symbolizes the same thing as Egypt. The present verse refers to Egypt or Pharaoh in the best sense because it uses both to portray the study of religious knowledge. The first study that the Lord took up in his youth, the fact that they were the main commandments from the word, can be seen from the symbolism of these things on an inner level. Much evidence confirms that in the word, Pharaoh symbolizes the same thing as the whole of Egypt, just as the monarchs of other kingdoms mentioned by name symbolize the same thing as the names of the kingdoms themselves. Officers, though, symbolize the primary elements in those kingdoms. In Isaiah, for instance, Cupid are the chieftains of Zoan, the sage advisors of Pharaoh. How can you say to Pharaoh, I am the offspring of sages, the offspring of the monarchs of old? The chieftains of Zoan have become fools. The chieftains of Noph have been deceived. The chieftains of Zoan, chieftains, but what chieftains? It's like chief.
Chieftains.
It's like leaders. Ataman.
Ataman.
Chieftains of Zon and Pharaoh's sage advisors stand for the most important facts we learn. And since wisdom flourished early in Egypt, as noted before, Egypt is referred to as the offspring of sages and the offspring of the monarchs of old. Officers of chieftains or chieftains stand for primary things in many other passages of the word as well. The fact that they praised her to Pharaoh means that this would please him can be seen without explanation. The fact that the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house means that they would capture his fancy can be seen from the symbolism of a woman and of a house. A woman symbolizes truth here, the truth contained in scholarly learning whose pleasures captivated the Lord in his youth. The pleasures of truth are those that come from truth, intuitively known, intuitively. How to pronounce?
Intuitively.
Intuitively known, symbolized by a sister. A house symbolizes qualities in us, especially qualities of our will, as shown earlier in. So here it symbolizes what we fancy or what we love to know and learn.
Sorry, what's the meaning of the intuitively? Intuitively. I mean the synonyms of it.
Intuitively.
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 Intuitively is like it's like
Intuition?
you,
Intuition.
yeah,
No.
intuition. It's like wisdom, maybe. Yeah, intuition. What is intuition? And it's from known or perceived by intuition.
Oh, okay, got it.
Mhm.
Is my sound okay now?
Yeah.
Or still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay right now. I don't hear echo. What did you do with your
My echo cancellation was disabled, so I just enabled it.
echo cancellation in
Yeah.
Discord or in
Yeah, in
SoundCard?
Discord. In Discord.
Yeah. I know the Discord has echo cancellation.
Yeah. Shall I read or
Yeah.
someone wants to read?
Yeah. Who wants to read? You can say.
I continue.
Go ahead.
Genesis 12:16. And he was good to Abram on her account. And Abram had flock and herd, and male donkeys, and male servants, and female donkeys, and camels. He was good to Abram on her account means that the number of facts the Lord knew multiplied, and Abram had flock and herd, and male donkeys, and male servants, and female servants, and female donkeys, and camels symbolizes all the general categories of fact. And he was good. Wait, may I know what is your understanding on that, or it's gonna be explained later on?
About what? About donkeys?
Yeah, about the flock and herd but I think it was already we already read it in the previous
Mm.
chapter, right? Like verses, I
Mhm.
think. But
Mm.
no, I was just featuring what was the meaning of it. But maybe later on it will be explained, right?
Yeah, he will explain. He will explain in
Okay.
this in this verse.
Okay. And he was good at
But
Abram on her.
but actually, we can suppose what it means, and after it we can read the point of view of Swedenborg, because it's more, maybe it can be more interesting if you can suppose what it means, because it's like donkeys and male servants, and it's like it means that he was very rich, yeah, but we should understand what it means in inner sense, because because we should see that things in ourselves, yeah, because it's not about him, yeah, we read about
Yeah,
him,
yeah.
but
It's like
actually we
our
can,
own understanding. It was in our own understanding, right?
yeah, because we can he means Swedenborg means that we can see Abram in in us, in us, because because it's about spiritual things, and spiritual world has no time and spaces, because it's not about historical events, but it's about us, because we have the same things that Abram had. And actually we can understand what it means.
Yeah. Okay.
And actually we can find that things in ourselves. If you understand what it means.
Okay, I got it. And he was good to Abram on her account means that the number of facts the Lord knew multiplied, as can be seen from the symbolism of being good to anyone as enriching that person. It is the secular knowledge symbolized by Pharaoh that is being said to have benefited Abram, or in other words, to have benefited the Lord when he was young. What
Yeah,
is
the see, it's about we can see the Lord, and the Lord is. Do you know who is the Lord? Yeah, and this because he means the Lord when he was young.
Okay.
How do you understand it? The Lord when he was young. Who is that Lord?
Wait. It
I
says
mean,
that
he.
symbols by Pharaoh that is being said that have been benefited Abram, or in other words, to have benefited the Lord when he was young.
The Lord when he was young. Do you understand? Who is it about? Whom is it about whom? Uh, it is about Jesus Christ. Yeah, do you see the Lord when
Yes.
when Jesus was young, he was in Egypt. Yeah, because his father took him
To Egypt.
into to Egypt, and he lived in Egypt. And it's about knowledge, because and we can understand in this way that we are in Egypt too. If we if we learn if you learn wisdom like this, if we, because Egypt is about teaching, like school and high school like this, in this sense. Because when we learn about wisdom, about wise things like this, in this sense, I understand in this way. Because
Okay.
it's about it is about us, yeah. Because we are like in Egypt, because you see, when we see the way of Jesus Christ, we should see our way, because it's our way too. Because we have the same faith that Jesus had and Abraham had, and it means we can see ourselves in Jesus Christ, and His way is our way. The first stage is like we are born anew, and after it, we are in Egypt. Like we learn about um, spiritual knowledge like this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I mean? Yeah.
Maybe in my own understanding.
It's my way to understand it, because I try to understand his
Yeah.
thinking.
I'm actually new in reading the Bible, so I'm not really an expert. That's why I keep on, um, thinking the right um, understanding or the right description in every word that I'm seeing here. So yeah, I'm still confused, but I'm still learning. So and I learn a lot from here. So yeah.
And have you read New Testament and Gospels? It's about life
Right
of Jesus Christ on earth.
now I'm starting all over again. I'm still in Matthew, so in the gospel.
Mm,
So yeah. So
mm,
I read few Genesis before, but it's just from the just a few chapters. So this is
mm,
just my other way of understanding the Bible itself. So yeah.
mm. Okay.
I hope you
But,
understand me. I don't know.
Okay. Go on.
Okay. More it benefited him on her account. That is, on account of intui- intuit-
Intuitive. Intuitive.
intuitive truth, which he desired. The desire for truth was what enriched him. The fact that and flock and herd and male donkeys and male servants and female donkeys and camels symbolize all the general categories of fact can be seen from the symbolism of all this in the word. It would take too long to demonstrate the specific symbolism of each, though of flock and herd, of male donkeys and male servants and female donkeys, and of camels. Each has its own symbolism. As a group, they symbolize all facts of the study of religious knowledge and
Facets. How did you
facets,
say that?
facets,
Facet.
sorry,
Mm-hmm.
all facets of the study of religious knowledge and secular facts. Facts viewed in themselves are the male donkeys and servants. The satisfaction they yield are the female servants and donkeys. The camels are general knowledge whose purpose is to serve. The flock and herd are what we possess. And this applies throughout the word. Nothing whatever in our outer self is anything but a servant. It exists only to serve our inner self. This is true of all the facts we know, since they belong exclusively to our outer self. After all, they have been collected from earthly and worldly sources through our senses in order to serve our intermediate or rational self, so that this can be serve our spiritual self, so that this can serve our heavenly self, so that this can serve the Lord. So they arrange themselves in the subordination to one another. the most outward elements, ranking below the more inward ones in succession, and therefore each and every one of them in the order below the Lord. Facts, as a result, are the final foundation on which the inner layers rest in sequence, as they are the final foundation. They are inherently more subservient. Is it subservient?
Subservient, maybe subservient.
Subservient.
Subservient. You're correct.
Subservient.
Subservient.
Or is it
Subservient.
service? Servile? Oh, slave. Subservient. Like
It's like
slave?
hierarchy.
What?
It's like it's about ranks because if you have your boss at your work, it means you are subservient to your boss. Yeah, because boss is more high
Okay.
or at your work.
Then,
Subservient.
okay, subservient. Than the other levels. Anyone can see what role facts are capable of filling. All you have to do is reflect on it, or ask yourself what use they are. When you ponder their function in this way, you can grasp what the quality of that function is. Every bit of factual information has to exist for some purpose, and this is the service it performs.
It's the next, yeah. Genesis 12:17. Maybe someone wants to read next verse, Genesis 12:17. Who wants to read? Silence. Okay, I will read. Genesis 12:17. And Jehovah struck Pharaoh. How to pronounce it? I think I pronounce it correctly, yeah? Pharaoh. Pharaoh. Struck Pharaoh and his household with great plagues. Plagues, like pestilence, epidemic. With great plagues because of this word of Sarai, Abram's wife. Jehovah struck Pharaoh with great plagues means that facts were destroyed, and his household symbolizes the facts he had collected. Because of this word of Sarai, Abram's wife, means because truth needs to be to be connected with something heavenly. Jehovah struck Pharaoh with great plagues means that facts were destroyed. As can be seen from the following, Pharaoh symbolizes learning in general and consequently the facts learned. And being struck with plagues symbolizes being destroyed. This is how it is with facts. While we are young, we accumulate them. How to pronounce accumulate?
Accumulate.
Accumulate. While we are young, we accumulate them for the sole purpose of knowing them. In the Lord's case, the motivation was the pleasure he felt in truth and the love he had for it. The facts we collect in youth are very plentiful. The facts we collect in youth are very plentiful.
Plentiful.
Many?
Plentiful.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Numerous, like many, right? Like more than one.
Plentiful. Like the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like
I get it. Okay, okay.
plentiful and workers are few. Plentiful. But the Lord organizes. Yeah, because they see the facts we collect in youth are very plentiful. Yeah, because children can be learned more more plentiful like this because they have possibility to learn. Yeah, like this. Maybe because of imagination. Maybe because of memory. Like because memory is like empty. That because they can be learned more plentiful than adult people can be learned in this sense. But the Lord organizes them properly so that they can serve a use. They enable us first to think, then to figure out, figure, fig, figure, figure, figure out, figure of speech, like figure,
Figure.
figure out. Then to figure out how we can put facts to use, and finally to become embodiments of usefulness ourselves. To become embodiments of usefulness ourselves. This happens when our life itself consists in being useful. When our life is one of useful activity. These functions are performed by the facts we absorbed in our youth. Without facts on external self, could never unite with our inner self and in the process become truly useful. Some people do come to embody usefulness. In other words, they view everything in terms of its use and direct all their action toward the useful goal. Perhaps they do not reflect explicitly on the question of usefulness, but still they do so explicitly.
Explicitly.
Like clearly, explicitly. Still they do so tactically. Tactically? Tacitly. What is this tacitly? Still they do so tacitly. I don't know this word. Maybe.
Like taste it? Is it tacitly? Taste it?
I don't know, is because this word is separated. Maybe I can translate if I will type letters. Tacitly.
Tacitly. Or
Tacitly. This is, yeah.
I don't know.
This word, yeah?
Tacitly.
Oh,
Tacit.
tacitly.
Tacitly.
In
Tacitly.
English, same. Is it same with English, or it's just the same?
Yeah,
Tacitly.
it's English. It's like silently,
Okay.
silently,
Is
privately,
it tacitly? Okay.
tacitly, like secretly and
Tacitly.
implicitly, tacitly.
Okay.
Okay, do so, but still they do so tacitly by second nature. With these people, factual knowledge has filled its first function, which is to make them rational, and the facts that are then destroyed because they no longer have a purpose, and so on from there. That is what the present verse means when it says that Jehovah struck Pharaoh with great plagues. The symbolism of and his household as the facts he had collected can be seen from the symbolism of a house of or household here as facts that are being collected. Accumulating facts and using them to construct or build an outer self is much like building a house. Accordingly, houses and the building of houses have this same symbolism throughout the word as in Isaiah. I am creating new heavens and a new earth. They will build houses. They will build houses and inhabit them, and they will plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. They will not build and another inhabit. A house here is a place where there is wisdom and understanding, and so where goodness and truth are known, since it is talking about the Lord's kingdom, that is to say, about new heavens and a new earth in Jeremiah. Build the houses and live in them, and plant gardens and eat their produce. The meaning is the same in David. Happy is the man who fears Jehovah in Jehovah's commandments. He takes great pleasure. Wealth and riches are in his house, and his virtue will be standing forever. The wealth and riches stand for the wealth and riches of wisdom and understanding, and so for religious concepts which are in his house, that is inside the person. Houses with an opposite meaning come up in Zephaniah. I will exact punishment on those who say Jehovah has not done good and has not done evil, and their riches will become plunder, and their houses are ruined, and they will build houses and not live in them, and plant vineyards and not drink the wine. In Haggai, go up onto the mountain and bring wood and build a house. To look for much, and here it became little, and you brought it into your house, and I blew it away. Why, says Jehovah, because of my house which has been deserted, while you go running each to your own house. Therefore the heavens above you have been shut off from their dew. Haggai. A house here stands for facts for which we produce falsity by means of twisted logic. In Isaiah, doomed to those attaching house to house, field to field, they bring together until there is no room, and you live alone in the middle of the land. If many houses are not made desolate, large ones and good without any inhabitant, Jehovah's vineyard is the house of Israel. Here too the house stands for facts from which we produce falsities. In Amos, look, Jehovah is issuing commands, and he will strike the large house with cracks. Cracks. What is cracks? Cracks.
Cracks.
Mm-hmm. It's like crash,
Like scratch,
cracking.
maybe.
Mm. Stretch?
Scratch.
Ah, scratch. What is scratch? I don't know, scratch. Mm. Yeah, cracking. Hacking. Bleed.
It depends on, I think it depends on the sentence, I guess.
Cracks. It's like when your house after earthquake and it's going to be broken.
Yeah, it will end some crack,
Yeah, they see
like
crack.
like marks. Yeah, crack mark. Yeah, crack mark on a building.
Yeah. And it's about dry land to cracks. And actually, it's movie cracks. Okay, with cracks and the small house with how to read this word? Crevices, yeah.
Crevices. Crevices. I guess.
Crevices. What is this?
Crevices.
Crevices. It's like crack, cleft. Crevices. I think crevices like big cracks. You can see the picture. Crevices. After big earthquake. Yeah, it's crevices, you see. It's like crevices. Big cracks. Copy that. With crevices, will horses run on rock? Will anyone plow it with oxen? For you have transformed integrity into poison and the fruit of justice into wormwood. The house again stands for falsity and the evil that falsity gives rise to. Horses stand for skewed logic. Integrity stands for truth that is transformed into poison. And the fruit of justice stands for virtues that are transformed into wormwood. Throughout the word, then houses stand for human minds, which ought to hold understanding and wisdom. Pharaoh's house here stands for the facts on which understanding and therefore wisdom are based. The house that Solomon built for Pharaoh's daughter, 1 Kings and following verses, also has the same symbolism. Since houses stand for our minds, which contain understanding and wisdom, and which also contain the emotions that belong to our will, the symbolism of a house in the word is broad. The particular symbolism can be deduced from the context in which it is mentioned. People themselves are also called houses. Yeah, because I understand, like, my mind is my house. Because it's about my learning, because my learning is like my knowledge in my house. Okay. Because of this word of Sarai, Abram's wife, means because truth needs to be connected with something heavenly. This can be seen from the symbolism of a wife and the soul of Sarai, the wife, as truth that needs to be connected with something heavenly, discussed about verse 12. The situation is that unless facts which fill the purpose when we were young are destroyed and obliterated as we become rational, truth can never be wedded. Wedded. What is it? Wedded. It's like wedding. Not. Yeah, it's about married. Wedding. It's about wedding.
Wedded.
Wedded, combine. Wedded to any heavenly quality. Those first facts, for the most part, are earthly, bodily, and worldly in their purpose. Even though the commandments that we absorb as young people are divine, we cannot form any notions about them except on the basis of facts like those. As long as the lowly facts from which we form our ideas cling to us when our minds cannot be lifted up. It was the same in the Lord's case because he was born like any other person and had to be taught like any other person, although his progress followed the divine plan, whose nature was being discussed. The present story of Abram in Egypt depicts the divine plan by which the Lord's outer self was united with his inner self so that his outer self too would become divine. Any comments? And who wants to read next?
Maybe I will.
Go ahead.
Genesis 12:18. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why didn't you point out to me that she was your wife?" And Pharaoh called Abram means that the Lord remembered and said, "What is this you have done to me?" Means that it
Do you remember this story? Because Abram lied to Pharaoh that his wife was his
sister.
sister.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, sister, right? I was thinking.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. It's funny. Why did Abram do that?
Yeah.
What
The
do you
Pharaoh
think?
asking him why he did that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And Pharaoh asked him, "Why did you
Have
lie me?"
done. Yeah.
Yeah, but and so what is your point of view? Why did Abram do that? Why did Abram lie
He said
to Pharaoh?
something. I'm recalling it. It's like um uh, about their relationship. Um, there's word of from it like I can't remember, but it's like he has a reason. That's why he did that. But I forgot the right word.
Mm. Because
Mm,
his wife was
it's
beautiful,
beautiful. Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that.
and Abram was afraid that Pharaoh can kill him because of
Yeah,
his wife to
yeah, and
take
then
her.
his wife is gonna be like widow or something like that, right? That's why
Yeah,
he mentioned that she was his sister. Yeah, I remember.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah. It can be look funny like that, but we should.
Yeah,
I don't remember. Could I do that? But it's like maybe Abram was very afraid of Pharaoh that because
yeah.
he did
Because
that.
they just right, they just like transferring to different places. Is they just go there, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
Together with his
What
family, right? I was thinking.
together? What?
With his
Say that again.
family, like son of um he's with someone else other than her wife, right?
Hmm.
I forgot the name, but I know he was with someone other than her wife, like son of
Mm.
someone.
Mm. But
Is it?
actually,
Wait. You mentioned before, like this is you're gonna be your second time reading this book, right? Am I right? Or I'm just.
this book, I'm reading this book my first time.
Oh, okay, okay. But have
Mhm.
you mentioned like you read the book of Swedenborg before? I forgot if it's this one or other books. Other books. Not
I,
with
I,
it
I
within the Discord, in your own like your own.
no, I'm actually I started reading books of Swedenborg here in Discord.
Oh, okay.
maybe 4 months ago, maybe. And I have read maybe 6 of his books here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have this book and about apocalypse revealed. It's about the book of Revelation of the Bible. It is his next book I am going to read. And it's all because I don't have another books.
I thought
Because
the last something you mentioned before. Is it?
last sorry, I don't understand. Last something what?
Uh, is it book from Swedenborg? The last wait, it was on your okay. The Last Temptation of Christ.
No, it's not Swedenborg. Yeah,
It's
after
different, right? The other another writer, right? You mentioned.
yeah, it's Nikos Kazantzakis. Do you
Yeah.
see?
Yeah.
This is Nikos Kazantzakis, and actually, it's very beautiful and horrible book, actually. But actually, you know, do you see Nikos Kazantzakis? And
Is
actually,
he
this book
just
is
one
like
of Swedenborg, or it's just under Swedenborg?
actually, you know, the books of Swedenborg are about doctrine, like teaching and doctrine,
Okay.
and
Okay.
because we are learning. But the Last Temptation of Christ is about practice, because when you see, it's like it's about practice, because the first we learn from books of Swedenborg about the kingdom of heaven and about the kingdom of God, and we can understand how it works. And but actually, it's if you think about heaven like anything about future, but actually we should think about heaven as about the kingdom of God on earth, because Jesus was proclaiming the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven. Like the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of God are the same thing. And he was proclaiming, and he was saying, the kingdom of heaven is near. It is at hand. It means it is here on earth. And actually, where can we find the kingdom of God? We can find the kingdom of God within God's words. And actually, why do we need to find the kingdom of God? Because it's about society, like an ideal just society. Because every one of us wants to live in an ideal just society. And actually, books of Swedenborg are about theory, like theory of building on that ideal just society. But the the Last Temptation of Christ, it is about practical. It is about practice, like how can we
They
do
apply
that?
like. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, to apply teaching of Swedenborg into practice.
Okay.
Into
Okay.
practice. And actually, that because I am going to read this book after books of Swedenborg, because it's about because if you are at school, yeah, the first like in high school, the first we are learners there.
Yeah.
We get knowledge, but when we finished that high school and college, like
Like learning.
university,
Yeah.
yeah, university, we should work, because we became adult, and we should work, and we should apply
Oh yeah. I get it.
our knowledge
Our
into
knowledge from it. Yeah.
practice, yeah, to make them real and to have benefit from that. And actually, this book is about practice. It's more difficult to read the first, but if we will try to understand the lexicon of Nikos Kazantzakis, and we can be able to read
But
this
you
book
get
later.
you're gonna read the Revelation after this, right? You mentioned before the temptation.
Yeah. Because I have this book we read, Secrets of Heaven, Volume 2, and after this book, I go and read Apocalypse Revealed. It's Apocalypse Revealed.
Yeah.
It's about last book of the Bible, because it's like the end of
The end of
learning. Yeah, because it's before practice. We should read this book before practical deeds.
Yeah, like
Mm,
before we go to our internship.
Yeah, yeah, and and because and after this book Apocalypse Revealed, I want to understand the book of Nikos Kazantzakis, The Last Temptation of Christ, and maybe because I watched this movie, maybe mm, you if you want to understand this novel better, The Last Temptation of Christ, you can watch this movie, the first. This movie is by director Martin Scorsese. Is the greatest director in the world. And when Martin Scorsese read The Last Temptation of Christ novel, he was shocked, and he made the movie. This is the greatest movie in the world, in my understanding.
But
It's my favorite
yeah,
movie.
I think there is some Genesis movie something. I don't know if it's really real, but I just saw it
Gen-
one of the commercial or something in advertisement like that.
The Last Temptation of Christ, do you mean?
No, it was different. It's like about Genesis, about the book of Genesis, I think.
The film about Genesis, do you mean?
Yeah, I think so. It's about the beginning,
Uh,
from the beginning. But I'm not
mm,
100% sure about that. I don't know. It's just an advertisement or something.
mm. I can show you. I can show you this movie. How can we? 1 second.
Maybe we should finish it first because we're in the book club. So
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean the in Wikipedia, because
oh yeah.
mhm. It's not about movie. It's actually it's about Wikipedia. You can show you can watch this movie if you want. The Last Temptation of Christ. If you will type in Google this name, the last.
Temptation.
Mhm.
Have you finished or the Bible or
Uh, what do you say? Sorry.
have you finished the Bible? I mean, have you read the whole chapter?
The Bible.
Yeah,
Book of Bible or Book of Swedenborg about
the book
Bible?
of the Bible itself.
Ah,
The Bible itself.
I have, of course, I have read the Bible, New International Version of the Bible. I have read
Mm-hmm.
the whole Bible. Do you see the Last Temptation of Christ film,
Okay.
1988?
Oh,
And this
okay.
is. Do you see? It's Peter Gabriel, music by Peter Gabriel. It's amazing music, and David Bowie. It's a musician and singer. You see, it's a very famous singer, and David Bowie. It's a $7 million film. because it's Martin Scorsese. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let's continue the
Okay.
reading. Yeah,
I think
Genesis
I
12:15.
finished this one.
Mhm. What? Yeah, it's about what is this you have done to me. Means that it caused him anguish. Pharaoh was asking him, "Why did you do that?" Yeah, like
Yes.
this. But actually, Sarah was really his sister. Sister. He was his sister, and he was his wife. That because
For real?
he was, yeah, he was correct when he said Pharaoh, he is my sister, because she is really was his sister. But and the same time he was his wife too. But he didn't say he's my wife. He said
Mhm.
she's my sister.
That it caused him anguish that she was your wife. Means when he realized that it would not be right for him to have any truth, but truth that was wedded to something heavenly. The meaning of Pharaoh called Abram as fact that the Lord remembered can be seen from the symbolism of Pharaoh as a secular knowledge itself, or wait, what's secular?
Secular, like sacred,
Is it?
sacred. No,
Secular.
it's like non-sacred. It's like non-religious, because sacred is like religious, but secular is like non-religious, like worldly, secular knowledge itself. Because there are, for example, there are Christian states or Muslims, Islamic states, and there are a lot of secular states, like without any religion.
I think secular is very old, no?
Old?
Yeah, it's something very old.
Mm, I think all new. I mean, a lot of worldly countries are secular. For example, because in Europe, for example, yeah, we can say maybe in England not secular, but maybe France
It's
is
like
secular
it's
state.
like more than a century. A lot of century is a secular knowledge.
Mm, yeah, maybe secular knowledge itself. hmm
Okay.
Next page. hmm
Facts themselves that the Lord drank in when he was young are being called Pharaoh here. As a result, it is factual knowledge itself that addresses the Lord in this way, or rather, it is Jehovah speaking through factual knowledge. The reader can see from this that the present clause means that the Lord remembered. Awareness comes through the facts we learned, we learn, and so through Pharaoh, who symbolizes secular knowledge as no dead. The fact that he said, "What is this you have done to me?" means that it caused him anguish, can be seen from the outrage itself with which the words are said. The anguish, then, is explicitly voiced in these words. The inner meaning is such that the actual emotion implicit in the words is what makes up the inner meaning. The literal, literal words themselves are not noticed. It is as if they did not exist. The feeling present in the words is anger on the part of secular knowledge, so to speak, and grief on the part of the Lord. Grief to know that the facts he had learned with such satisfaction and pleasure would be destroyed in this way. His predicament. What's predicament again?
Maybe
Prediction? Something? Is it?
Maybe predicament. Let's see.
Predicament.
Predicament. Yeah, you're correct. You're correct. Predicament.
Predicament.
Predicament. Difficult situation. Difficult situation because he was afraid and he was in a difficult situation. It means he had predicament. His predicament.
His predicament resembled that of babies who love something that their parents can see is dangerous for them. Wait, what's for what was the first word? Sorry.
Removing.
Removing the object makes the baby cry. That she was your wife means that it would not be right for him to have any truth but truth that was wedded to something heavenly. This can be seen from the symbolism of a wife as truth that needs to couple with something heavenly, as discussed above at verse 12. Again, what is predicted? Depicted, sorry. Depicted here is the plan by which the Lord advanced into understanding and from understanding into wisdom so that he would become wisdom itself throughout in regard to his human quality as well as his divine.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to read next? Yours. Okay. Okay, if nobody wants to read, I think this reading is over today, and we can read next verse tomorrow.
Okay.
Time
Bye.
is 12:19. Goodbye. See you.
Bye. See you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.